In a moment that should have been her fairy tale ending, Emma James stood alone in her white dress, surrounded by whispers and pitying glances. The church bells that were meant to herald her happily ever after now told a different story. Her groom wasn't coming, but in that crushing moment of betrayal, she didn't notice how James Morrison, her fiancé's best friend, looked at her with the same quiet devotion he'd carried for 15 years. As chaos erupted around her, he remained steady, just as he had through every milestone of her life. What Emma didn't know was that this devastating ending was about to unveil a love story that had been writing itself all along. Could the man, who had always been in the background, turn out to be the leading man she never knew she needed? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The leather-bound journal sat heavy in James Morrison's pocket as chaos erupted in St. Paul's Church. Its worn edges pressed against his heart, fitting since it held 15 years of unspoken feelings within its pages. But right now, watching Emma's world crumble, his own heart could wait. "Everyone, please," he called out, his steady voice cutting through the growing pandemonium. 200 guests had just witnessed the unthinkable. David Jensen, golden boy and supposed love of Emma's life, had left her standing at the altar. The whispers were already starting. Phones were being pulled out, and Emma stood frozen at the altar, her white dress a stark contrast against her rapidly paling face. Sarah, Emma's maid of honor, reached for her, but Emma stepped back, her eyes fixed on the empty church doorway. James recognized that look, the same one she'd worn when her father passed away during their senior year of college. It was the look of someone's world shattering in slow motion. "James," Sarah whispered urgently, "do something." He was already moving, muscle memory from years of being Emma's unofficial protector kicking in. As he approached, he slipped off his best man's jacket, draping it gently over her shoulders. The familiar scent of his cologne seemed to break through her trance. "James." Her voice was barely audible, fragile as spun glass. "He's not coming, is he?" The journal in his pocket felt heavier. How many times had he written about moments like this? Not this exact scenario. He'd never imagined David would be cruel enough to abandon Emma at the altar. But moments where he'd wanted to gather her close, to be more than just the reliable friend. "No, sweetheart," he said softly, using the endearment that usually only slipped out when she was hurt or sick. "He's not." Emma nodded once, twice, her composure cracking like thin ice. Then, with a dignity that made his heart ache, she turned to face the murmuring crowd. "I'm so sorry, everyone. It seems—" Her voice wavered but held. "It seems there won't be a wedding today." The chaos that followed was both better and worse than James expected. Better, because Emma's closest friends immediately formed a protective circle around her, shielding her from prying eyes and well-meaning but painful sympathy. Worse, because he could see the exact moment reality truly hit her, could pinpoint the second her professional mask began to crack. "We need to get her out of here," he murmured to Sarah, who nodded in agreement. "The bridal suite," Sarah suggested. "At least until we can clear the church." James guided Emma through the side door, away from the main crowd, his jacket still draped over her shoulders, making her wedding dress look suddenly like a costume she couldn't wait to shed. In his pocket, the journal knocked against his leg with each step, its presence a reminder of all the words he'd never said. The bridal suite was a chaos of its own. Scattered makeup, champagne glasses still half full, Emma's overnight bag, packed for the honeymoon she'd never take. She sank into a plush chair, her dress billowing around her like a deflating dream. "I should have known," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "There were signs, weren't there? I just didn't want to see them." James knelt beside her chair, taking her trembling hands in his. "This is not your fault, Emma. None of it." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and for a moment he worried she could see right through him, could read every confession written in his journal. "How are you always here, James? Every time my world falls apart, you're just here." The answer was in his pocket, in 15 years of entries that traced their history. Today, Emma got into med school. Her smile lit up the whole room. I wanted to tell her then, but the timing wasn't right. And later, Emma's father's funeral. She held it together until everyone left, then cried in my arms for hours. I've never felt so helpless or so needed. And most recently, just last night, tomorrow I watch the woman I love marry someone else. If that's what makes her happy, I'll stand beside them both and mean every word of my toast. But he couldn't tell her that. Not now, when her heart was raw and bleeding. Instead, he squeezed her hands gently. Where else would I be? A knock at the door heralded Sarah's return. "The church is mostly clear," she reported. "Your mom's handling the last of the guests, Emma. Do you want to go home?" Emma's grip on James's hands tightened momentarily. I can't go back to the apartment. All his things. You'll stay with me," Sarah declared firmly. "We'll figure everything else out tomorrow." James stood, reluctantly letting go of Emma's hands. "I'll take care of things here," he promised. "Don't worry about any of it." As Emma gathered her things, changing out of her wedding dress with Sarah's help, James's hand brushed against his journal again. Maybe someday he'd show her those pages, let her read the story of their friendship through his eyes. But for now, she needed him to be exactly what he'd always been. Her steady ground in the storm, her constant friend, the one person who had never let her down. He watched as Sarah led Emma away, his jacket still wrapped around her shoulders like armor against the world. In his pocket, 15 years of unspoken love waited patiently for their moment. Time enough for that later. For now, he had a crisis to manage and a friend to protect, even if every beat of his heart whispered that she could be so much more. The burgundy photo album was thick with memories, its pages sticky with age and filled with moments that seemed to belong to another lifetime. Sarah found it while helping Emma settle into the guest room, tucked away in a box of college memorabilia she'd brought from her apartment months ago during the move to what should have been her marital home. "Oh my God," Sarah breathed, flipping it open. "Emma, look at this. Remember that Halloween party sophomore year?" Emma, curled up in borrowed pajamas on Sarah's oversized armchair, managed a weak smile. "The one where James dressed up as a doctor because I'd just decided on med school." The photo showed them all. Emma in her Florence Nightingale costume, James in scrubs with a toy stethoscope, Sarah as a cat, and David. Emma's breath caught. David wasn't in that picture. He hadn't even been part of their lives then. He was. "Always so supportive," Emma murmured, taking the album from Sarah. "James, never questioned that I could do it, even when everyone else thought I was crazy to tackle med school." Sarah settled onto the arm of the chair, watching Emma's face carefully. "He's been there for all the big moments, hasn't he?" Emma flipped through the pages. Graduation day, her white coat ceremony, holidays and random weekends captured in fading photographs. James appeared in so many of them, always slightly to the side, always watching her with an expression she'd never really noticed before. "I keep thinking," Emma said slowly, "about how he looked today. Not surprised, not really. More resigned, like he'd been expecting something like this." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "James never liked David much, did he? He never said anything against him." "Exactly." Sarah pointed to another photo, this one from just last year, the engagement party. James stood at the edge of the frame, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. James always has an opinion about everything. Remember how he spent 20 minutes arguing about the best way to make coffee? But with David, he just went quiet. A knock at the door interrupted them. James himself stood there, looking exhausted but composed. "Thought you might need these," he said, holding up a paper bag that smelled suspiciously like their favorite college hangout cinnamon rolls. You drove all the way to Maurice's? Emma's voice cracked a little. They hadn't been there in months. David had always preferred trendier spots. They're still the best cure for a bad day. James set the bag down and started to retreat, but Sarah caught his arm. Stay, she said firmly. Emma's looking at old photos. Come tell us about the time you almost set the chemistry lab on fire, trying to impress... What was her name? Melissa Chen, Emma supplied, and for the first time that day, a genuine laugh bubbled up. He was trying to recreate some romantic chemical reaction he'd read about. James groaned, but settled onto the floor near Emma's chair. In my defense, the article made it sound much simpler than it actually was. They spent the next hour like that, flipping through photos and sharing memories. Emma noticed how carefully James steered clear of any stories involving David, how he seemed to know exactly which memories were safe to revisit. When Sarah finally excused herself to take a shower, Emma found herself studying James's profile as he examined a photo from their senior spring break. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" she asked suddenly. James looked up, his expression carefully neutral. "About what?" "About David. If you had concerns." "You're my best friend, James. I would have listened." He was quiet for so long, she thought. He might not answer. Finally, he closed the photo album gently. "It wasn't my place to tell you who to love, Emma. I just wanted you to be happy." Something in his tone made her heart squeeze painfully. Before she could pursue it, though, her phone buzzed. David's name appeared on the screen. James was on, his feet immediately. "I should go. Let you have some privacy." "Stay," Emma blurted out, surprising them both. "Please, I can't face this alone." He sank back down, and Emma felt some of her panic recede. The phone buzzed again, insistent, demanding, but with James's solid presence beside her and the photo album in her lap, tangible proof that she'd survived and thrived long before. David entered her life. She found the strength to hit decline. "Tell me more about the chemistry lab incident," she said softly. "I don't think I ever heard the whole story." James's smile was gentle, understanding. They both knew she was avoiding the inevitable, but maybe just for tonight that was okay. They had years of memories to revisit after all, and tomorrow would come soon enough. The coffee shop loyalty card was worn soft at the edges, little squares punched out in a pattern that spanned years. Emma found it while going through her wallet, tucked behind her credit cards, like a forgotten promise. The daily grind was barely legible on its faded surface, but the memories it evoked were crystal clear. It was where she'd always run to when things fell apart, where James would inevitably find her, sliding into the booth across from her with 2 cups of perfectly prepared coffee. One black for him, one vanilla latte with an extra shot for her. It was where she'd gone after every breakup, every failed exam, every minor life crisis. Where she'd told James about David's proposal, watching something flicker in his eyes before he smiled and congratulated her. Now, 3 days after the wedding that wasn't, Emma found herself there again. She hadn't told anyone she was coming, but somehow she wasn't surprised when James appeared, coffee in hand. "Your usual," he said quietly, sliding into his familiar spot. Emma wrapped her hands around the warm cup, breathing in the comforting aroma. "How did you know I'd be here?" "Same way I always know," he shrugged, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache. "You come here to think, and after this morning's news..." Emma stiffened. "What news?" James's expression turned careful, measured. "You haven't seen it?" She shook her head, though dread was already pooling in her stomach. James pulled out his phone, hesitated, then turned it toward her. The local news website's headlines seemed to mock her. "Local business mogul David Jensen spotted in Cabo with mystery woman." The photo was grainy but unmistakable. David on a beach with his assistant Rebecca. The timestamp was from 2 days before the wedding. "Oh," Emma said softly. The coffee suddenly tasted bitter in her mouth. "I'm so sorry, Emma." She stared at the loyalty card on the table, its punch marks like little wounds. "All those times I came here to tell you about our fights, our makeups. You knew, didn't you? About Rebecca. James was silent for a long moment. I had suspicions, but I didn't want to hurt you. So you let him do it instead. The words came out sharper than she intended. Emma! James reached across the table, then pulled back. You loved him. If I had told you what I suspected, without proof, would you have believed me, or would it have just seemed like I was trying to cause problems? She wanted to be angry with him, wanted somewhere to direct the pain that was threatening to overwhelm her. But he was right. She wouldn't have believed him. She'd been too invested in the fairy tale. I feel so stupid, she whispered, tears finally spilling over. Everyone could see it but me. Hey, no. James's voice was fierce. You're not stupid. You're one of the smartest people I know. You believe in people. That's not stupid, it's brave. Emma looked up at him through her tears, really looked at him. James, who had been there through everything, who knew her coffee order by heart, who could read her moods better than anyone, who had never once let her down. Why do you always defend me, even to myself? Something raw flickered across his face, there and gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Because someone should, he said simply. The loyalty card sat between them, a testament to years of conversations, confessions, and comfort sought and given. Emma picked it up, running her finger along its worn edge. I think I need a new one, she said finally. A fresh start. James pulled out his wallet and extracted a crisp new loyalty card. Already got you covered. The gesture, so simple yet so profound in its thoughtfulness, made fresh tears well up. But these felt different, cleansing rather than bitter. James? She waited until he met her eyes. Thank you for everything. He smiled, and for a moment Emma thought she saw something more in his expression, something that made her heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with grief or betrayal. But then he was just James again, steady and sure, pushing the new loyalty card across the table like a promise of better days ahead. The faded concert ticket was tucked into the back of James's journal, its once vibrant colors now muted by time. The Lumineers World Tour 2010 was still barely legible across its surface. He hadn't meant to keep it all these years, but some memories were too precious to discard. That night had changed everything for him, though Emma had never known. Standing in the crowd, watching her sing along to Ho Hey, her face illuminated by stage lights, her joy absolutely pure, that was the moment he'd realized he was in love with his best friend. Now, a week after the wedding disaster, James sat in his apartment, staring at that ticket, while his phone buzzed with Sarah's incoming call. Have you told her yet? Sarah demanded without preamble. Hello to you too. James tucked the ticket back into his journal. And no, I haven't. It's too soon. It's been 15 years, James. How much longer are you going to wait? He moved to his window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk settled. She just had her heart broken, Sarah. The last thing she needs is more emotional complications. Or maybe it's exactly what she needs. Sarah's voice softened. She's been asking about you, you know, about the past. James's heart skipped. What do you mean? She found some old photos from that concert, keeps staring at them like she's trying to solve a puzzle. I think she's starting to see things differently. The memory of that night flooded back. Emma, in her favorite blue dress, hair wild from dancing, grabbing his hands and pulling him closer to the stage. He'd followed without hesitation, just as he'd followed her through every moment since. James? Emma's voice suddenly replaced Sarah's. Are you there? He nearly dropped the phone. Emma? I thought I was talking to Sarah. You were. I'm at her. A place. There was a pause filled with something he couldn't quite name. I found some old photos from that Lumineers concert. I remember. His hand instinctively went to the journal where the ticket lay hidden. We look so young, she said softly. So happy, simple, before everything got complicated. Life has a way of doing that. Do you? She hesitated. "Do you ever wish we could go back? Do things differently?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. James closed his eyes, remembering how many times he'd almost told her that night. How the words had sat on his tongue during Dead Sea, her favorite song. How he'd watched her sway to the music and thought, this is it, this is the moment. But then her college boyfriend had shown up to surprise her, and the moment had passed. Just like so many moments after. "Sometimes," he admitted finally, "but we can't change the past, Em." "No," she agreed, but maybe we can learn from it." There was something in her tone that made his pulse quicken. "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking about us, about patterns. How you've always been there, even when I didn't realize how much I needed you, and I keep coming back to that concert night." James gripped the phone tighter. "What about it?" "You looked at me differently after that. I didn't understand it then, but looking at these photos now..." She took a shaky breath. "James, were you going to tell me something that night?" The ticket in his journal seemed to burn through the pages, through his pocket, straight to his heart. "Emma, because if you were," she continued quickly, "if there was something you wanted to say then or now, I think I'm ready to hear it." Time seemed to stop. In his mind, the music from that night played again. "I belong with you. You belong. With me, you're my sweetheart." And he was back there, watching her dance, holding all his words inside. "Emma," he said carefully, "are you sure you're ready for this conversation?" "No," she admitted, "but I'm sure I need to have it." The city lights blurred as he stared out his window, heart pounding. 15 years of unspoken feelings pressed against his chest, demanding to be heard. "The thing is," he started, then stopped as he heard voices in the background on her end. "Oh God," Emma whispered, her voice suddenly tight with panic. "James, I have to go. David's here." The line went dead before he could respond, leaving him alone with the echo of what might have been said, the ticket in his journal, a reminder of all the moments lost to timing and circumstance. The crumpled paper lay on Sarah's coffee table, James's neat handwriting marred by multiple crossouts and revisions. Webster's dictionary defines love as was viciously scratched out at the top, followed by several false starts. But it was the middle paragraph, the one he'd never intended anyone to see, that caught Emma's eye as she tried to steady her nerves after David's unexpected visit. "I've watched Emma grow into the amazing woman she is today. I've seen her overcome every obstacle, achieve every dream, and light up every room she enters. And while today she begins a new chapter with David, I want her to know that some things will never change. She will always have someone in her corner, someone who believes in her completely, someone who..." The rest was torn off, but Emma could see the ghost of words bleeding through from the back. "Someone who has loved her since that concert night 15 years ago." "He never finished it," Sarah said quietly, making Emma jump. She hadn't heard her friend return from showing David out. "Wrote a completely different toast for the wedding instead. Something safe, proper." Emma's hands trembled as she set the paper down. "Why didn't he ever say anything? Would it have mattered?" Sarah's voice was gentle but pointed. "Before today, before everything that's happened, would you have been ready to hear it?" Before Emma could answer, her phone buzzed with a text from James. "Are you okay? Do you need me to come over?" David's words from minutes ago echoed in her head. "I made a mistake, Emma. Rebecca meant nothing. You're the one I want to build a future with." She'd stood there in Sarah's living room, looking at the man she'd thought she'd spend her life with, and felt nothing. No pain, no anger, just a strange sense of clarity. Every word he'd said had sounded hollow compared to the simple sincerity of James's unfinished toast. "No," Emma said finally, answering both Sarah and James's text. "I know exactly what I need to do." She picked up her phone. "I'm fine. David's gone. But can we meet tomorrow? There's something I need to tell you." James's reply was immediate. "Daily grind, our usual time." Emma smiled, thinking of all the mornings they'd shared in that coffee shop, all the conversations that had shaped their lives. Perfect, she typed, then, feeling brave. And James, bring your journal. I think it's time we both stopped hiding things. Sarah let out a low whistle. Are you sure about this? For the first time in weeks, yes. Emma looked at the unfinished toast again. You know what David said when he was trying to explain why he left? He said he got scared. Said the idea of forever was too overwhelming. And I realized that's exactly what James has been offering me all along. Not just forever, but every day leading up to it. Through med school, through my dad's death, through every breakup and breakdown, he's never run away, never gotten overwhelmed. Sarah smiled, picking up the torn toast. Took you long enough to notice? I noticed, Emma admitted quietly. I just wasn't ready to understand what I was seeing. But finding this, reading these words he never meant anyone to see, it's like looking at our whole history through new eyes. Her phone buzzed again. James, everything will change after tomorrow, won't it? Emma thought about the concert ticket she'd found in her old photos, about the way James had looked at her. That night, the same way he'd been looking at her ever since, she now realized. About how he'd written and rewritten his toast, trying to find a way to support her happiness, even when it broke his heart. Yes, she replied. But maybe that's exactly what we need. She could picture him in his apartment, probably pacing, probably holding that journal he always carried. The journal that might hold 15 years of unspoken feelings, 15 years of moments just like the one captured in his unfinished toast. What if I'm wrong? She whispered to Sarah. What if I'm just rebounding? Sarah handed her the toast, now carefully smoothed out. Read it again. Really read it. Does that sound like something temporary to you? Emma traced James's handwriting, feeling the weight of years of devotion in every carefully chosen word. No, this wasn't temporary. This was the kind of love that grew quietly, steadily, until it became as essential as breathing. Tomorrow would change everything. But for tonight, she had these words, this proof that sometimes the best love stories aren't the ones that start with grand gestures, but the ones that build slowly, one unfinished toast, one coffee date, one concert ticket at a time. Emma couldn't sleep. After setting up tomorrow's meeting with James, she'd started going through old boxes, searching for something she half remembered. She found it around midnight. Her old diary, its pink cover faded to almost white, little heart stickers peeling at the corners. Sitting cross-legged on her childhood bedroom floor, she'd moved back in with her parents temporarily after the wedding disaster. She opened it to a random page. Her teenage handwriting jumped out at her. October 15th, 2008. James helped me study for bio again today. He's so patient, even when I get frustrated. Mom says he likes me, but that's ridiculous. He's just nice. Besides, he's way too good for me. He's already got his whole future planned out, while I can barely decide what to wear to school. Emma's breath caught. She'd completely forgotten writing that. Flipping forward a few pages. December 3rd, 2008. Broke up with Matt today. James found me crying in the library and just sat with me for an hour. Didn't try to fix anything or tell me I was better off without Matt. Just stayed. When I finally stopped crying, he said, "Anyone who makes you cry isn't worth your tears." Then he made me laugh by doing his terrible British accent. The memories flooded back, how safe she'd felt in that quiet corner of the library, how James had somehow known exactly what she needed. Another entry caught her eye. March 20th, 2009. Prom is coming up. Part of me wishes James would ask me, but he's taking Claire Peterson. They look good together. Mum says I should tell him how I feel, but I can't risk ruining our friendship. Besides, these feelings are probably just because he's been so supportive about my med school applications. That has to be it. Emma sat back, stunned. She'd completely buried these feelings, these early hints of something deeper between them. How had she forgotten? Her phone lit up with a text from James. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about tomorrow. Her heart skipped as she typed back, "Me too. Found my old diary. Did you know I wanted you to ask me to prom?" The typing bubbles appeared and disappeared several times before his response came. I wanted to. Was too scared to ruin what we had. Emma traced her fingers over her teenage confessions, seeing the pattern that had started so long ago. Both of them holding back, protecting their friendship at the cost of something potentially greater. She turned to the last entry before college. August 28th, 2009, moving day tomorrow. James helped pack my room today, found my old teddy bear, and threatened to tell everyone at orientation about how I still sleep with it. I threatened to tell everyone about the time he tried to serenade Claire Peterson and forgot all the words. We ended up looking at old photos instead. Mom asked me again if I'm sure about just being friends with him. I am. I have to be. College is about new beginnings, and James is my constant, my safe place. I can't risk losing that. Better to have him always as my best friend than to risk everything on feelings that might not even be real. A tear splashed onto the page, smudging her teenage certainties. All these years, all these feelings, buried under layers of friendship and fear and other relationships. Her phone buzzed again. James, I still remember how you looked that moving day. You were so excited, so ready for everything ahead. I knew then I'd follow you anywhere. Emma wiped her eyes, looked around her childhood room, where so many of these memories had played out. The walls still held photos of their friend group. James always there, always watching her with that expression. She'd never let herself fully understand. We were so young, she texted back, so afraid of losing what we had. And now? His response was immediate. Emma looked down at her diary, at all the evidence of their intertwined lives, of feelings acknowledged, but never acted upon. Tomorrow they would meet, and everything would change. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a sense of rightness, of pieces finally falling into place. Now, she wrote, I think we've waited long enough. The watch had stopped. At 9:47, James noticed this as he sat in their usual booth at the Daily Grind, early as always. The silver face was cracked, had been since the day Emma gave it to him for his medical school graduation. He dropped it celebrating that night, but could never bring himself to replace it. You still wear that old thing. He looked up to find Emma standing there, clutching what he recognized as her childhood diary. She looked different somehow, lighter despite the obvious nervousness in her stance. It keeps terrible time, he admitted, but I'm attached to it. Sentimental value? She slid into the booth across from him, her usual spot. Something like that. He placed his journal on the table between them, its worn leather matching the age of his broken watch. You said we should stop hiding things. Emma took a deep breath, fingers tracing the edge of her diary. I found some interesting entries last night about us, about feelings I thought I'd forgotten. James's hand went instinctively to his watch. Emma, let me finish, please. When he nodded, she opened the diary to a marked page. I wrote, here about wanting you to ask me to prom, about being afraid to ruin our friendship, and then I found this. She pulled out a photograph that had been tucked between the pages. It showed them at his medical school graduation, his new watch gleaming. On his wrist, both of them beaming at the camera. I wrote something on the back, she said quietly, turning the photo over. In her younger handwriting, the best person I know just became a doctor. Someday he'll make someone so happy. I just wish. The sentence ended there, unfinished. You wish what? James's voice was barely audible over the coffee shop's morning bustle. Emma met his eyes. I wish I'd been brave enough to finish that sentence, to admit what I really meant. James reached for his journal, opened it to where the concert ticket marked a page. I've been carrying this for 15 years, he said, removing the ticket. Because that was the night I realized I was in love with you. The word hung between them, finally spoken after so many years. Why didn't you tell me? Emma whispered, though her diary held the answer. The same fear of losing what they had, the same protective instinct toward their friendship. For the Same reason you never finished that sentence on the photo. He tapped his broken watch. Time never seemed right. You were with someone else, or I was, or we were both too scared to risk everything. A waitress approached with their usual orders. She'd seen them there so often she didn't need to ask anymore. As she set down their coffees, Emma reached across the table and touched James's watch. When did it stop, really? The night David proposed. James's admission was quiet but clear. You called me right after, so excited. I was holding my phone and I dropped the watch. Never got it fixed. Felt fitting somehow. Emma's hand moved from the watch to cover his. I found your unfinished wedding toast. James stiffened. Emma, the real one. Not the safe version you gave at the rehearsal dinner. Her fingers tightened on his. The one where you finally told the truth. I never meant for anyone to see that, but I needed to. She pulled out the crumpled paper, smoothed it on the table next to their joined hands. Because reading it made me realize something. All these years, we've been writing unfinished sentences, carrying broken watches, holding on to concert tickets, keeping pieces of each other without ever admitting why. James looked at their hands, at the evidence of their shared history, spread across the table. And now, Emma took another deep breath. Now I think it's time we stop letting fear write our story. The night you dropped this watch, when I called about David's proposal, what did you really want to say? The morning light caught the watch's cracked face, reflecting like tears. I wanted to say that he didn't deserve you, that no one could. Possibly love you the way I did, the way I do. Emma's breath caught. Say it again. I love you. The words came easier now, like they'd been waiting all this time to be free. I've loved you since that concert, since before then probably. I've loved you through every relationship, every crisis, every celebration. I've loved you so long I don't remember how not to. Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks, but she was smiling. The sentence on the photo, what I wished? It was that I could be brave enough to tell you that I loved you too. That maybe I always had. The engagement ring receipt fluttered out of David's folder as he slammed it down on Emma's parents' kitchen table. You want proof I was serious about us? Here, look at the date. Emma stared at the slip of paper, her confession to James from that morning still warm on her lips. The receipt was dated just 2 weeks before the wedding, not the 6 months. David had claimed when he proposed. You bought the ring 2 weeks before the wedding. The pieces clicked into place. After you'd already started seeing Rebecca. David ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. It's not what you think. Rebecca was a mistake. I bought the ring because I knew you were the one I wanted to marry. No. Emma's voice was steady now, stronger than it had been in weeks. You bought it because you found out your father was changing his will. Sarah told me everything. The color drained from David's face. She had no right. She had every right. She's my best friend, and unlike you, she actually cares about me. Emma picked up the receipt, noted the rushed purchase, the premium paid for immediate sizing. Your father's new will specified that his heir had to be married by 35. You turned 35 last month. Emma, please. David reached for her hand, but she stepped back. What we had was real. Was it? Because I've just spent the morning experiencing something real, and it feels nothing like what we had. David's eyes narrowed. Morrison, I've seen how he looks at you, how he's always looked at you. Yes, Emma said simply, he has. For 15 years, through every up and down, every joy and heartbreak, he's loved me completely, honestly, without agenda or condition. And you're what? Running straight into his arms, a week after our wedding was supposed to happen. Emma thought of James's broken watch, of all the years they'd waited, protecting their friendship at the cost of their hearts. No, I'm finally walking towards something true, something that's been waiting patiently for me to be ready. He was my best friend. David's voice rose. He was supposed to be my best man, and you were supposed to be my husband. But you left me at the altar to be with your assistant, only to come crawling back when you realized it would cost you your inheritance." She held up the receipt. This isn't proof of love. It's evidence of calculation, just like everything else about our relationship." "You don't mean that?" David's tone turned wheedling. "We can start over. I'll do better. I've already started over." Emma pulled out her phone, showing him her background. The photo from James's medical school graduation, the one with her unfinished confession on the back. "With someone who's never needed a receipt to prove his love. He'll never be able to give you what I can, the lifestyle, the social connections, the lies, the betrayal, the constant wondering if I'm enough." Emma shook her head. "I don't want any of that. I want morning coffee that comes with understanding. I want someone who's seen me at my worst and loved me anyway. I want—" Her phone buzzed with a text from James. "Just checking you're okay. Sarah told me David showed up." David caught the soft smile that crossed her face. "So that's it? 15 years of pining and you're just going to fall into his arms?" "No." Emma met his eyes steadily. 15 years of building something real, of learning each other, supporting each other, loving each other even when we couldn't. Admit it, what you and I had, it was a story I told myself because I was afraid of what was real." She took the receipt, tore it carefully in half. "I don't need proof of James's love. I have 15 years of evidence in broken watches and concert tickets, in coffee dates and quiet support, in all the moments he chose me, even when I couldn't choose him." David stared at the torn receipt. "You're making a mistake." "No," Emma said softly, looking at James's text again. "I finally stopped making mistakes. Please leave, David, and don't come back." After he stormed out, Emma sank into a kitchen chair, her hands shaking slightly as she typed, "I'm okay, better than okay, ready for our second coffee of the day." James's response was immediate, already waiting at our spot. Emma smiled, tucking her phone away. Their spot, their history, their future, finally unfolding the way it should have all along. The Valentine card was still sealed in its envelope, yellowed with age but never delivered. James pulled it from his journal as Emma slid into their booth for the second time that day. Her cheeks were flushed from her confrontation with David, but her eyes were clear, certain. "What's that?" she asked, noticing the envelope. "Something I wrote during our second year of med school." He turned the envelope over in his hands. "You were dating that surgical resident, Michael. I remember." Emma wrapped her hands around the fresh coffee he'd ordered for her. "You hated him because he made you doubt yourself, changed the way you dressed, the way you talked, made you smaller." Emma's expression softened. "You never said anything. I wrote it instead." James slid the envelope across the table. "I was going to give you this, tell you everything. Then Michael broke up with you the day before Valentine's and you were there to pick up the pieces." Emma touched the envelope gently, like always. "Open it." Her hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal, carefully extracting a handmade card. The front showed a surprisingly good sketch of them in their study spot at the medical library. "You drew this?" "I had a lot of feelings to work through." James smiled self-deprecatingly. Art was cheaper than therapy. Emma opened the card, and her breath caught at the words inside. "Emma, I've rewritten this 100 times, trying to find the perfect words. But maybe perfect isn't what we need. Maybe we just need honest. So here's my truth. I love you, not just as a friend, though that's precious to me. Not just as someone who's watched you grow into an incredible doctor, but completely, wholly, with every part of myself. I love how you scrunch your nose when you're concentrating, how you always save the marshmallows in your hot chocolate for last, how you can name every bone in the human body but still can't remember where you parked your car. I love that you see the best in everyone, even when they don't deserve it. That you cry at commercials but stay stone-faced during horror movies. That you're brilliant and beautiful and don't even realize it. I'm not writing this to change things between us. I'm writing it because loving you has become as natural as breathing, and sometimes I think I'll burst if I don't tell you. You deserve someone who sees you, really sees you, who knows that you hum while you study and dance when you're nervous, who understands that your compassion isn't weakness, it's your superpower. I want to be that someone. I've always wanted to be that someone. Happy Valentine's Day, James. Emma looked up, tears spilling down her cheeks. You wrote this 7 years ago? The feelings were already old then. James reached across the table, brushing away her tears with his thumb. They've only grown stronger since. All this time. She looked back at the card, at the careful drawing, the heartfelt words. How did you stand it? Being your friend was enough. It had to be. He smiled gently. Until today. Emma set the card down carefully, then reached for his hand. Read the last paragraph again. Emma, please. James picked up the card, his voice soft as he read, You deserve someone who sees you, really sees you, who knows that you hum while you study and dance when you're nervous, who understands that your compassion isn't weakness, it's your superpower. You wrote that 7 years ago, Emma said quietly, and you've spent every day since then proving it true. She stood up suddenly, sliding around to his side of the booth. Before he could react, she kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. When she pulled back, James touched his forehead to hers. I should have given you that card. No. Emma smiled, picking up the Valentine. It needed to wait until I could really understand what it meant, until I could see that love isn't grand gestures or expensive rings. It's knowing someone completely and choosing them anyway. Every day. James wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer. In his pocket, his broken watch pressed against his heart, marking a moment when time seemed both frozen and racing forward. When 7-year-old Valentines and 15-year-old feelings finally found their perfect moment. 2 movie tickets from 2012 lay on Emma's bedside table, edges worn soft from handling. The Amazing Spider-Man was still barely legible across their faded surface. She'd found them while cleaning out her old room, tucked into a book she'd borrowed from James, and never returned. That night had been their first almost date, though neither had recognized it at the time. She'd just broken up with her residency boyfriend, and James had suggested a movie to cheer her up. They'd shared popcorn, his hand occasionally brushing hers in the darkness. She remembered feeling something shift between them, a moment when friendship seemed to blur into something more, but then her ex had called the next day, wanting to reconcile, and the moment had passed. Now, a week after their first kiss in the coffee shop, Emma found herself studying those tickets while waiting for James to pick her up for their first official date. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Nervous? Emma smiled, typing back, terrified, but in a good way. It's just James, Sarah responded. The same James who held your hair back during that stomach flu in med school. The same James who drove 3 hours to bring you soup when you were too sick to leave your apartment during residency. That's exactly why I'm nervous, Emma wrote. He's James. What if we mess this up? Her phone rang immediately. Okay, talk to me, Sarah said as soon as Emma answered. What's really going on in that head of yours? Emma picked up the movie tickets, turning them over in her hand. I found these today from that Spider-Man movie we saw during residency, and it made me realize we've had so many almost moments, Sarah, so many times we could have figured this out sooner. And what if we waited too long? What if we've built this up so much that reality can't possibly match it? Sarah's laugh was gentle. Honey, you're overthinking this. What did you feel when he kissed you back at the coffee shop? Emma closed her eyes, remembering. Like everything finally made sense. And in the weeks since then? Like I can finally be completely myself. Like I don't have to pretend or hold back or... She trailed off, realization dawning. Oh, exactly. You're not building something new with James. You're just finally acknowledging what's been there all along. A knock at the door made Emma's heart jump. He's here. Then go get him, Doctor. Sarah's smile was audible. And Emma? Those almost moments? They weren't wasted time. They were building blocks. Emma hung up, tucking the movie tickets into her purse before opening the door. James stood there looking both familiar and somehow new, holding a single sunflower, her favorite. "Hi," he said softly, and Emma felt all her anxiety melt away. This was James, her James. "You brought me a sunflower. I remembered how you said they're the happiest flowers." He handed it to her, his fingers brushing hers. "Too much?" Emma reached up, straightening his collar the way she had 100 times before. "No." Perfect. His smile was different now. Still James, but with all his love finally unhidden. "I had this whole speech prepared about taking things slow, being careful with our friendship, but then you opened the door and I just wanted to kiss you again." Emma's laugh bubbled up, natural and free. "So kiss me." He did, pulling her close, the sunflower pressed between them. It felt like coming home and starting an adventure all at once. When they separated, Emma pulled the movie tickets from her purse. "Look what I found." 3 months into her relationship with James, and somehow this still had the power to hurt. Not because she wanted David back, God no, but because of the timeline. He'd been with Rebecca before their wedding, during their wedding planning, and now, barely 3 months after leaving her at the altar, they were announcing their own engagement. "Emma." She turned to find James watching her from the hospital entrance, concern etched on his face. He'd clearly run out without his coat, rain already soaking through his scrubs. "Did you see?" She held up her phone, her voice tight. "Sarah showed me." He moved closer, sharing the shelter of her broken umbrella. "You okay?" "I should be, right? I'm happy. We're happy. This shouldn't matter, but it does." His voice was gentle, understanding. "It's just—" Emma struggled to find the words. "They're announcing it like it's this beautiful love story. Like he didn't—" She stopped, frustration building. "Like he didn't destroy someone else's love story to write his own." "Yes." The umbrella finally gave up, collapsing completely. "And now everyone's going to be watching me, waiting to see how I react, wondering if I'm really over him or if I'm just rebounding with you and—" "Hey!" James took her face in his hands, rain running down both their faces. "Is that what you're worried about? What people think?" "No, yes, I don't know." She let the ruined umbrella fall. "I'm worried that this is going to change how people see us, that they'll think we're not real." "Emma." His thumbs brushed away tears that mixed with raindrops. "Look at me, really look." She did, seeing what she always saw. Absolute devotion. Complete understanding. 15 years of love written in every line of his face. "Do you remember the day you got into med school?" he asked. "How it rained just like this. You shared your umbrella with me on the walk home. And when your father passed away, it rained at the funeral." Her voice softened. "You held the umbrella over me all day, even though you got soaked. The day you matched for your residency? Thunderstorm." A small smile touched her lips. "You brought me that ridiculous yellow umbrella that broke after one use, and now here we are, standing in the rain again." He picked up the broken umbrella. "Life keeps throwing storms at us, Em, but we've weathered every single one. Together. But this is different. This is just another storm." He pulled her closer. "And yeah, maybe people will talk. Maybe they'll wonder if we're real. But we know the truth, which is that every rainy day, every broken umbrella, every moment, good or bad, has been building to this. To us." He brushed wet hair from her face. "David and Rebecca, they're writing their story from scratch, but ours has 15 years of proof behind it." Emma looked down at her phone, at the announcement that had shaken her so badly minutes ago. With a decisive motion, she turned it off and slipped it into her pocket. "I hate that he still has the power to make me doubt," she whispered. "He doesn't." James's voice was firm. "You're not doubting us. You're doubting how others see us. There's a difference." She leaned into him, letting the rain wash over them both. When did you get so wise? Somewhere between all those broken umbrellas. He kissed her forehead. Come on, let's get coffee, get dry, and then maybe... Maybe what? A mischievous glint entered his eyes. Maybe we should give them something real to talk about. Before she could ask what he meant, he pulled her into a kiss that rivaled any romance movie's rain scene. When they separated, both breathless and completely soaked, Emma couldn't help but laugh. Now that, called a voice from the hospital entrance, is going to be the talk of the break room. Sarah stood there, grinning and holding her phone. Much better headline than David's announcement, don't you think? Emma looked at James, saw the love and certainty in his eyes, and felt the last of her doubt wash away with the rain. You know what? It is. The broken umbrella lay forgotten at their feet, no longer needed. Some storms, after all, were worth getting caught in. The paint-stained shirt was originally white, one of James's old medical school tees. Now it was splattered with New Beginnings blue, as the paint chip had called it. Emma wore it as she stood in the middle of her new apartment, surveying their handiwork. I think, she said, turning to James, who was equally paint-spattered, this is the first place that's ever felt completely mine. He set down his roller, coming to stand behind her. No ghosts? No ghosts. She leaned back against him. No memories of David, no echoes of who I was trying to be. Just me, us. It had been her idea to start fresh, a new apartment, new furniture, new color on the walls. After David's engagement announcement last month, she'd realized she was still living, in the shadow of what had been, rather than embracing what could be. Although, she added thoughtfully, there are a lot of memories of you here already. Oh? James wrapped his arms around her waist. Like that paint streak on the ceiling? That's from when you tried to show off your rolling technique. I maintain that was artistic expression, and that drip pattern by the window, from when you got distracted, telling me about your difficult patient and forgot you were holding a wet brush. He chuckled against her hair. You're the one who asked about the case. And this shirt, she plucked at the stained fabric. This is from every moment today, every laugh, every paint fight, every time you looked at me like... Like what? She turned in his arms. Like I'm your favorite person in the world. You are. He touched a blue paint smudge on her cheek. Always have been. Emma looked around the room again, at the walls that would hold their future. I was so scared of change, you know. After David, after everything, I thought I needed to play it safe. And now I realize that the safest I've ever felt is with you, not because you protect me, but because you let me be exactly who I am. She touched his chest, right over his heart. Even when who I am is a mess of insecurities and paint stains. James caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. You know what I love most about this color? What? It's the exact shade of the scrubs you were wearing the first time I realized I wanted to spend my life with you. Emma's breath caught. When was that? 3rd year of med school. You'd been up for 36 hours straight. Your hair was a disaster, and you were practically falling asleep standing up. But you were so determined to help this scared kid through his pre-op checks. James smiled at the memory. You made up. This whole story about his IV being a superhero power source, and suddenly this terrified little boy was giggling and calling himself Iron Man. I remember that kid, Emma said softly. He drew me a picture afterward. You put it up in your locker, said it was better than any evaluation you'd ever gotten. James brushed paint-dusted hair from her face. That's when I knew. Exhausted, messy, completely focused on making a child feel safe. That was the real you, and that's who I fell in love with. Emma stretched up to kiss him, not caring that they were both covered in paint. When they separated, she said, "Move in with me." James blinked. "What? Move in with me, here." She gestured at the fresh blue walls. "Help me fill this place with new memories, real ones." "Are you sure? After everything with David moving in so quickly?" "That's exactly why I'm sure." She took his hands, paint-stained fingers linking together. David moved in because it was the next expected step. This is because I want to wake up every morning and see that paint streak on the ceiling, because I want your coffee mug next to mine and your terrible med school shirts in my closet, because every time I walk into this apartment, I want to remember today and know that this is where our story really began. James looked around the room at the evidence of their shared labor, their laughter, their love. You know Sarah's going to say we're moving too fast. Sarah's been waiting 15 years for us to move this fast. Emma tugged him closer. So? What do you say? Want to help me make more memories? Instead of answering, James pulled her into another kiss, this one leaving a perfect impression of his paint-stained hand on the back of his shirt. When they broke apart, both laughing, the blue walls seemed to glow with possibility. Is that a yes? Emma asked, breathless. That's... what took you so long to ask? The recipe card was stained with sauce and dusted with flour, Emma's hurried handwriting crossing out and adjusting measurements. James's Sunday sauce was written at the top, with a little heart drawn next to it. She'd been trying to recreate it for weeks now, determined to master his family recipe before their first dinner party in their new apartment. You know, James said, watching her stir the pot with intense concentration, my mom would just give you the real recipe if you asked. That's not the point. Emma tasted the sauce, frowning, still not quite right. And the point is? She turned to face him, wooden spoon in hand. The point is that for 15 years, you've been making this sauce for me whenever I needed comfort food. After bad breakups, failed exams, rough shifts, you'd just show up with pasta and this magical sauce that made everything better. And now you want to return the favor? Apparently, she spent the first few months of our relationship waiting for things to get weird or complicated. Emma smiled. She said she should have known better. James flipped to another page, this one showing their honeymoon. They'd chosen to stay local, spending a week exploring their own city like tourists, finding new favorite spots while revisiting old ones. There they were at the daily grind, sharing coffee in their usual booth. Another photo showed them outside the old movie, a theater, where they'd had their first real date, recreating the moment 15 years too late. Remember what you said to me that day? Emma asked, pointing to a photo of them in front of their old medical school. That loving you was like breathing, necessary, natural, and something I never wanted to stop doing. Smooth talker. But she was smiling. I can't believe we waited so long to say these things to each other. Maybe we needed the wait. James turned to the next page, which held photos from their first year of marriage. Maybe we needed all those years of friendship to build the foundation for this. The photos told the story of their first year together, moving into their apartment, hosting dinner parties, working side by side at the hospital. There they were in paint-stained clothes, christening their new home. There was James teaching Emma his sauce recipe, both of them covered in tomato splatters, Emma performing surgery while James watched proudly from the observation room. James falling asleep on their couch, medical journals scattered around him while Emma worked on case files nearby. It's strange, Emma mused, but nothing really changed, did it? We're still us, still doing all the things we've always done. We just get to do this now. She stretched up to kiss him softly. Some things changed. James pulled out a photo that had been tucked into the back of the album, the one from his medical school graduation, with Emma's unfinished confession on the back. We finally finished all our unwritten sentences. Emma took the photo, then reached for a pen. Under her old writing, someday he'll make someone so happy. I just wish, she wrote, I just wish I'd known then that someone would be me. But maybe I did know, somewhere deep down, that my happy ending was standing right beside me all along. There, she said, sliding the photo back into place. No more unfinished thoughts. James wrapped his arm around her more tightly. You know, when you were left at the altar that day, I thought my heart was breaking. Watching you hurt like that, but you were there. just like always, he agreed. And now look at us. Emma looked at their photo album, at the evidence of their love story finally being lived out loud. I wouldn't change it, you know. Not even the hard parts. Because every moment, every almost and not quite and maybe led us here, to eating year-old wedding cake in our scrubs, to being completely, absolutely ourselves with someone who loves all our parts. She turned to the album's final page, which held their most recent photo, both of them in their white coats, sharing a quick kiss between surgeries, to knowing that whatever comes next, we'll face it together. James closed the album gently. Speaking of what comes next, he pulled an envelope from behind the couch cushion. Happy anniversary. Emma opened it to find an ultrasound photo. Her eyes widened. Is this Sarah's? She asked us to be the baby's godparents. His smile was soft. Said she couldn't think of two people who knew more about love and timing and getting things right in the end. Emma tucked the ultrasound into their album, on a blank page waiting to be filled with new memories. She's right, you know. We did get it right in the end. No, James said, pulling her close. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. And as they sat there, surrounded by photos of their past and dreams of their future, Emma knew he was right. Their love story hadn't ended when she was left at the altar. It hadn't ended when they finally confessed their feelings, or even when they said, I do. Their story was still being written, one shared moment at a time, and she couldn't wait to fill the rest of their album with all the chapters yet to come. James's eyes widened in recognition. Spider-Man, I wanted to hold your hand so badly that night. Why didn't you? Because you weren't ready. He touched the tickets gently. And I needed you to be ready. Emma tucked the tickets back into her purse, then took his hand deliberately, threading their fingers together. I'm ready now. I know. He squeezed her hand. Dinner? Actually, Emma bit her lip. I was thinking maybe we could recreate that night. There's a revival showing of the same movie at the old theater, then maybe get ice cream after like we used to. James's face lit up. Starting where we should have begun? No. Emma stretched up to kiss him again, quick and sweet. Starting exactly when we were meant to. Now. As they walked to his car, hands linked, Emma felt the movie tickets in her purse like a promise, not of what could have been, but of what was finally happening. Every almost moment had led them here, to this perfect point in time, when friendship and love could finally become one and the same. The pressed wildflower lay between the pages of James's journal, a splash of purple preserved in time. He'd picked it on their first real date, plucking it from a crack in the sidewalk outside the movie theater. Life finds a way, he'd quoted, making Emma laugh at the wrong movie reference. Now, 2 weeks into their relationship, he watched her discover it as she flipped through his journal, something she'd finally earned the right to read. You kept it? She touched the delicate petals carefully. I keep everything that reminds me of you. James sat beside her on his apartment's worn couch, their shoulders touching, though that's becoming a storage problem. Emma leaned into him, still studying the flower. It's strange, she mused. Everyone keeps asking if this feels weird, us, being together, but it's the most natural thing in the world. Probably because we've been practicing for 15 years. She smiled, turning another page in his journal. Her eyes caught on an entry from just after her failed wedding. Watching. Her hurt is the hardest thing I've ever done, but loving her from a distance prepared me for this, being what she needs, even when what she needs isn't what I want to give. James. She traced his handwriting with her finger. How did you do it? All those years. He was quiet for a moment, considering. Remember that class we took on chronic pain management? How sometimes the body learns to live with something until it becomes normal? That's a terrible analogy. But she was smiling. Maybe. But it's honest. He took the journal, flipping to a more recent entry. Though this is more honest. Emma read, She kissed me today. After 15 years of imagining it, the reality was better. Because it wasn't just a kiss. It was every moment that led to it, every laugh, every tear, every almost and not quite and maybe. It was knowing her completely and being known in return. "You're a secret romantic," she accused softly. "Only with you." He touched the pressed flower. "Only ever with you." The doorbell rang, interrupting the moment. Emma groaned. "That'll be Sarah. She's desperate to hear how we're doing." As if she hasn't been getting daily updates. Hourly, actually. Emma stood, stretching. "She's convinced we're either going to elope tomorrow or implode spectacularly." James caught her hand, pulling her back down. "And what do you think?" She considered the question seriously. I think we've already survived every test a relationship can face. We've seen each other at our worst, supported each other through everything. The only difference now is that I get to do this." She kissed him, slow and sweet, putting 15 years of build-up into it. When they separated, James rested his forehead against hers. "That is a significant difference." The doorbell rang again, more insistently. "Coming," Emma called, but she didn't move. Instead, she carefully removed the pressed flower from the journal. "Can I keep this?" "Why?" "Because," she said, tucking it into her wallet, "sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that we finally got here. I want a reminder that even the smallest moments matter, that everything, even a sidewalk flower, can be the start of something beautiful." James touched her cheek, his expression soft. "We should probably let Sarah in before she breaks down the door." "Probably." Emma stood again but paused. "James, thank you for waiting, for being patient until I could see what was right in front of me. Thank you for being worth the wait." When they opened the door, Sarah took one look at their expressions and rolled her eyes. "Oh God, you're going to be one of those disgustingly happy couples, aren't you?" "Probably," Emma agreed, not looking away from James. "Is that going to be a problem?" Sarah's face softened. "After watching you two dance around each other for 15 years, I think we can handle a little happiness." James pulled Emma closer, and she felt the pressed flower in her wallet like a promise. Some things, like sidewalk wildflowers and decades-old love, didn't need grand gestures or perfect timing. They just needed the courage to be acknowledged, to be cherished, to be given room to grow. The business card was creased down the middle, worn from being carried in James's wallet for the past month. "Dr. Emma James, Pediatric Surgery," it read, with the hospital's logo embossed in silver. He'd been there when she ordered them, helped her choose the design. Now, as he watched her perform her first solo surgery through the observation window, that card felt like a talisman. "You know," Sarah said, settling into the seat beside him, "most boyfriends would be nervous watching their girlfriend perform complex surgery. Most boyfriends haven't spent 15 years watching her practice." "Sutures on chicken breasts," Sarah laughed. "God, you two really are perfect for each other. Who else would find that romantic?" Below, Emma's hands moved with confident precision as she repaired a young patient's heart. James couldn't help but smile, remembering all the late-night study sessions, the practice procedures, the moments of doubt she'd pushed through to get here. "Dr. Morrison?" A nurse appeared at his elbow. "Your patient in 304 is asking for you." James nodded, but his eyes stayed on Emma. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." "Go," Sarah nudged him. "She'll understand." "I know." He stood reluctantly. "It's just what? I've watched every important moment in her life. I don't want that to change just because we're together now." Sarah's expression softened. "James, you're not just her best friend anymore. You're not just her boyfriend either. You're both. That means you get to have your own life while still being there for hers." He pulled out Emma's business card, running his thumb over the embossed letters. "We're still figuring out the balance. Everyone is watching you two, you know," Sarah said suddenly. "The whole hospital, waiting for it to get weird or complicated. And you're disappointing them spectacularly by being disgustingly functional." She grinned. "Yesterday I heard Dr. Peterson complaining that you two are exactly the same, except now you kiss in the elevator." James laughed, tucking the card away. "We do not kiss in the elevator." "No, you just look at each other like you want to." Sarah stood, straightening her scrubs. "Go see your patient. Emma will find you after surgery, just like she always has. Some things don't need to change just because others have." He took one last look through the window. Emma glanced up at that exact moment, her eyes crinkling above her surgical mask. In what he knew was a smile. She gave him a tiny nod, their old signal for "I've got this," and he felt his heart swell. Later, after his rounds, he found her in their usual spot in the hospital cafeteria. She looked tired but triumphant. "Surgery went well?" he asked, sliding a coffee toward her. "Perfectly." She took a grateful sip. "Though I missed my good luck charm halfway through." "Sarah said you didn't need one." "Sarah's right." Emma reached across the table, taking his hand. "But I like having one anyway." He squeezed her fingers gently. "Speaking of Sarah, she says we kiss in elevators." "We do not." Emma paused. "Though maybe we should start. Give them something to really talk about." "Dr. James, are you suggesting we scandalize the hospital staff?" "Dr. Morrison, I'm suggesting we stop caring what anyone thinks." She pulled out her own copy of her business card, showing him how she'd doodled hearts around the edges during a long meeting. "Everyone kept warning us that working together and dating would be complicated, but they don't understand." "Understand what?" "That we've had 15 years to figure out how to be everything to each other. Friends, colleagues, support system. This is just adding one more layer." James studied their joined hands, thinking of all the times they'd sat in this same cafeteria, talking through cases and life and everything in between. "Think we'll ever stop finding new layers?" Emma's smile was soft, secret. "God, I hope not." A page over the intercom interrupted them. Another patient, another case, another moment in their intertwined lives. But as they stood to face it, James knew Sarah was right. Some things didn't need to change. They were still them, just with the freedom to be more. The weather-worn umbrella hung limply in Emma's hand, water dripping from its broken spokes. She stood in the rain outside the hospital, staring at her phone's screen where David's wedding announcement glowed mockingly. David Jensen and Rebecca Chen to wed in summer ceremony. "I want to be part of the tradition." She looked down at the sauce-splattered recipe card. "I want to know the secret ingredient that you always refuse to tell me." James stepped closer, dipping a finger in the sauce despite her protests. Close, but you're missing something." "I know." She threw up her hands in frustration. "I've tried everything. More basil, less garlic, different types of tomatoes." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Want to know the real secret?" "You're actually going to tell me." "The secret," he said softly, "is that there isn't one. My mom gave me the basic recipe when I left for college, but over the years, making it for you, I kept adjusting it. A little more of this, a little less of that, based on your reactions. The recipe evolved with us." Emma turned in his arms, sauce forgotten. "You customized your family recipe for me." "Of course I did." He smiled. "Why do you think my mom's version never tastes quite the same to you? This version, it's ours. Our history in a sauce." Tears welled in Emma's eyes. "That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. More romantic than when I quoted medical journals in my love confession. Slightly less romantic than when you explained your love through anatomical metaphors." She stretched up to kiss him, tasting tomato sauce and possibilities. The timer dinged, making them jump apart. The garlic bread. Emma rushed to the oven, pulling out a perfectly golden loaf. "At least I can't mess this up. Your mom did actually give me this recipe." "About that," James looked sheepish. "That's not really her recipe either." "What? Remember that little Italian bakery we found during residency? The one that closed down?" He took the bread from her, setting it aside. "I spent weeks begging. The owner for his recipe before they closed, because you once said it was the best garlic bread you'd ever had. Emma stared at him. That was 7 years ago. We weren't even... Emma. He took her hands, heedless of the sauce stains. Everything I've done for the past 15 years has been because I loved you. Every recipe learned, every comfort food prepared, every tradition started. It was all part of loving you the best way I knew how. She looked at their kitchen counter, at the evidence of their merged lives. His spice rack next to her cookbook collection, their coffee mugs sharing space by the machine, the recipe card that represented so much more than just a sauce. Our friends will be here in an hour, she said finally. I know. Should we order pizza? No. She picked up the recipe card, then deliberately set it aside. Teach me. Show me how you make it, all the little adjustments, every variation. I want this to be our tradition, not just yours for me. James smiled, reaching for the basil. Well, you need to understand that the proportions change based on the tomatoes. As they cooked together, adding pinches of this and dashes of that, Emma realized that this, creating something new from the foundations of their past, was what their relationship had been doing all along. Every shared moment, every tradition, every recipe was just another way of writing their story together. The sauce they served their friends that night wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and somehow that made it taste better than any secret ingredient ever could. The wedding invitation lay on their kitchen counter, cream-colored and elegant. Dr. Emma James and Dr. James Morrison request the pleasure of your company. Sarah picked it up, smiling at the simple design that somehow managed to capture both their personalities perfectly. No second thoughts, she asked Emma, who was calmly sipping coffee at their kitchen island, exactly 1 week before her second attempt at a wedding day. Not a single one. Emma's eyes drifted to where James slept on their couch, medical journal still open on his chest. He'd worked a double shift, but had insisted on coming home rather than sleeping at the hospital. Funny how different it feels this time. How so? Last time, I was obsessing over every detail. The perfect flowers, the perfect music, the perfect... and photos. She traced the edge of the invitation. This time, I just want to be married to him. Sarah settled onto the stool beside her friend. You know, when you and David were planning your wedding, you had this tension about you. Like you were trying to convince yourself of something. I was. Emma's admission was quiet but clear. I was trying to convince myself that wanting a perfect wedding meant I wanted a perfect marriage, that if I could just get all the details right, everything else would fall into place. And now? Emma smiled, watching James stir slightly in his sleep. Now I know that the perfect marriage isn't about getting everything right. It's about finding someone who loves you even when everything's wrong. Sarah pulled something from her bag, a photograph from Emma's first wedding day, taken just moments before they discovered David wasn't coming. I kept this, she admitted, because even then, even in this moment... Look. Emma studied the photo. There she was in her first wedding dress, radiant with anticipation. But in the background, slightly out of focus, was James. The look on his face, love, resignation, devotion, pain, made her heart ache. He was always looking at you like that, Sarah said softly. We all saw it. We just waited for you to see it too. I think part of me always did. Emma set the photo down next to their new invitation. I was just afraid. Loving James. It was too important to risk getting wrong. And now I know that loving him is the only thing I've ever gotten completely right. A soft sound made them both turn. James was awake, watching them with soft eyes. How long have you been listening? Emma asked. Long enough. He sat up, making room for her to join him on the couch. When she did, he pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. Having wedding thoughts? Good ones, she assured him. Sarah's just making sure I'm not going to leave you at the altar. As if you could, Sarah picked up the invitation again. "You two are disgustingly perfect together. It's actually kind of annoying." James laughed. "We aim to irritate." Speaking of irritating, Sarah's tone turned mischievous. "Guess who saved the date? Arrived today." Emma groaned. "Please tell me David and Rebecca didn't." "Oh, but they did. Very fancy, very expensive, very them." Sarah pulled out her phone. "Want to see?" "No," Emma said firmly, surprising them both. "That's not our story anymore." James's arms tightened around her. "No regrets? Only that it took a broken engagement for me to see what was right in front of me." She turned to face him. "Although maybe we needed that. Maybe we needed to take the wrong path to find our way to the right one." "Very philosophical, Dr. James." "Soon to be Dr. James Morrison," she corrected, enjoying the way his eyes lit up at the name. "Or maybe Dr. Morrison James. We still haven't decided. Details," he murmured, pulling her closer. Sarah stood, recognizing her cue to leave. "Well, my work here is done. The bride is calm, the groom is smitten, and everything is disgustingly perfect." At the door, she paused. "Oh, Emma, don't forget you have that final dress fitting tomorrow." "I won't." Emma didn't look away from James. "This one's absolutely perfect." After Sarah left, James picked up their wedding invitation. "You know, we could still elope, save ourselves all the fuss." "No way." Emma took the invitation from him, running her fingers over their names. "I want everyone to see this, to witness the moment we finally get it right. We've been getting it right for 15 years, he reminded her. "We're just making it official." She thought about that first wedding day, about all the paths that had led them here. "I love you," she said, simply. "Not because you waited or because you loved me first, but because loving you is the easiest, truest thing I've ever done." James's response was to kiss her, soft and sure, like they had all the time in the world, which Emma realized they did. They had a lifetime of moments ahead of them, and this time she was absolutely certain she was marrying the right person. The new family photo album sat open on their laps, its first page displaying their wedding photo from exactly 1 year ago. Emma leaned against James on their couch, both still in scrubs, after their shifts, sharing a piece of anniversary cake that Sarah had dropped off. "I still can't believe you cried during the vows," Emma teased, touching the photo where James's tears were clearly visible. "Says the woman who started crying during the rehearsal dinner." He kissed her temple. "And during the first dance. And during Sarah's speech. It was an emotional day. It was perfect." James turned the page, revealing more moments from their wedding. There they were exchanging rings, the same hands that had held each other through 15 years of friendship, now promising forever. Another photo showed their first kiss as husband and wife, both of them smiling too much to properly kiss. "Oh, look at this one." Emma pointed to a candid shot of them during the reception. They were in their own world, foreheads touching, matching, expressions of absolute joy on their faces. Sarah said this was the moment she finally stopped worrying about us. She was worried.